This is a knife skill video, basic knife skill. You don't need a fancy knife to do it. This is a Kiwi brand. You can buy these at Asian supermarkets. They're like $4. The trendy knife stores are gonna hate that I said that, but this is my favorite knife and it's like so cheap. In terms of sharpening it, I'm gonna sharpen it first and show you how to do that. I also have a stone that I bought at an Asian grocery market as well, but you can buy like nice ones of these. I soak it in water ahead of time, and it's a whetstone, but this one, because it's so cheap, is not great. As you can see, like it kind of absorbs really quickly. The nice ones like are a little bit nicer. It has 2 grits. So this is the rougher grit. It's usually the bigger side. You can see like the little line there. So I'm gonna use the rougher grit first. Now when it, like for knife sharpening, a lot of people use a steel, like you see Chef Ramsay like using the steel. That doesn't actually sharpen your knife, it just hones it. So it'll make it feel better for 10 minutes. But if you just like spend a couple bucks on one of these, you can actually sharpen your knife and it's not hard. Like you don't have to be intimidated. So you just take your knife, probably put a cloth down so it doesn't slip everywhere, but keep it wet. And then, so every knife has an angle. So to find your angle, you just put it flat against it and you lift it up, and right about there it meets. It's completely flush. So that's your angle. And then you just, so the rough grit is kind of for, like let's say, like I have a little, you probably can't see that on footage, but I have like a little ding on my knife there. So that's kind of what the rough grit is for. It'll take off a lot more steel. So work it as long or as short as you want, and then you'll kind of flip it. I'll just do this quick, but you'll find the same angle on the other side. Make sure that it's completely flush all the way from the front to the back. Do the same thing and work that again until you have like, as you do it, you'll see this tiny edge that goes all the way along the edge of the knife, and that's pretty even. So I'm doing a decent job. I don't know how much you can pick up of it, but it's just that tiny, like 1 millimeter bottom edge.
Let's test this out here. Oh yeah, we got it.
Maybe if I shimmer it, there you go. So it's like moderately even. I have a little spot right there that's not that even. So yeah, you just work on it till you have an even, you have dings in your knife, work it until those dings are completely gone and you have one continuous blade again. And then you're gonna polish it, which is, you're gonna use the finer grit side, and you're gonna, this is kind of gonna give it that razor sharp edge. Now, kind of like when you're sharpening a knife, what you're doing is you're wearing away steel, but so when you wear it away on one side, it curls the other side. So you end up with this little thing they call a burr on the other side. That's what you use the steel for, to take that out. But I don't have a steel, so I'm gonna show you how to do it without a steel, but ideally, you can buy a steel for like 10 bucks. And then when I do the other side, I'll just kind of like make sure it's even. Just like before, it's the exact same on the fine grit. But then in order to just get rid of that burr, which you can feel by going like this, I can feel that there's a burr on the side I wasn't sharpening, so it's curled over this way. So I'll just hit it literally one time to take that burr out. And then I'll just check that it didn't burr on the other side. And it's completely smooth, super sharp. There you go, that's it. Yeah, so a lot of people will hold the knife all back here, and it's like super, I mean, you can do it that way, but for me, I feel that it's like, it's super unstable. If you're cutting into something really hard, like a yam or something, you have a pretty high probability for your knife to go sideways as you commit to that cut, versus if you actually hold the blade right here, it's like really solid, and you have way more control of just the actual blade. And so if you hit something that's like really hard, or you're going through something that has a seat or a core, there's less chance that it's gonna kick your knife sideways. So yeah, I would suggest holding it right here. Now with your other hand, when you're learning this, a lot of people will like resort to not doing this because it feels uncomfortable. You have to train it to be comfortable. So they'll like, you know, they know how to use a knife for the most part, but they'll keep their fingers out here. I promise you, you may not do that right off the hop, but you will cut yourself at one point very bad if you do that. I've done it so many times. And then eventually you learn like you just never go away from this. So this is like you can keep one knuckle out or you can keep it completely flat. It doesn't really matter. But essentially if you're like this, you like there's no way to cut yourself. The worst thing that can happen is you can go too high and shave off a little bit of knuckle, but I promise you that's a lot better than like cutting in and hitting your bone on your thumb. So just like, and you can learn this, like you can practice this if you're just like, whatever, you got something cooking in a pan and you're like have time to kill, like just come over here and like practice what that feels like to train your muscle memory. Because I know like years ago when I learned that it felt uncomfortable, so I wouldn't do it. And now if I cut any other way, that feels uncomfortable. So you can train yourself to like be comfortable. I know it feels a little funny at first. And then the other thing is like, so the shape of your knife, the shape of most knives will go up to this point. And the reason they put it up like that is because you can actually use the curve to make a rocking motion. So, and then you're kind of looking down both sides. Also what's great about this grip is you can use it as a gut, like if you're just cutting like this, you can jump like a lot and you'll have uneven cuts. Versus if you have this, you're like controlling it where you move. So you can see. So practice that. And then you can eventually do it with something like a potato. Now with potato and like most fruits or vegetables, they're round. So I always cut off one side. The thickness, when you cut off this side, like cut it off the thickness you want to do your cutting. So we're gonna cube these. So that's about the size I want. Then you have a flat surface. It won't roll around on you. We're gonna do the same grip I just showed you. And then you can cut all the way down. And then even if you, like let's say, I mean this isn't too shaky for me, but for some people, like even if you find this shaky, you can then go like this. Okay, so in terms of, this is just kind of what it looks like. And with, also with learning to use a knife, like obviously it's cool and looks cool to go really fast, but speed will come. And if you're ever in front of someone who really knows what they're doing with a knife, nobody really cares about speed. They care about consistency. So if all your cuts look perfect and exactly the same, that will get you more respect than being like super, super fast. So I would honestly just take the time to like learn to get precise versus like speed. Speed will come over time and you'll get super comfortable. And eventually you like realize you're not gonna cut yourself, so you're not as scared to go a little bit faster. But when you're learning, I would say go super slow. And there you go. Just some cubed potatoes. So yeah, pretty easy. The other thing I'll show you how to do is like the one that is the bane of people's existence when they learn knife skills, is they're just like, how do I cut an onion? Okay, so I'm gonna show you how to cut an onion. I just took the one end off. Take the end off that looks like this. So you want this part still attached because that's kind of like your anchor. And then you cut this in half this way. Take the peel off. And then, so if you look at an onion this way, there's all these arches. There's these little, those are all the layers. On something like a red onion or something, they have really big cores, and I would suggest popping that core out. But on these, and since we're cooking it, it doesn't really matter. But so if you look at it like that, the best way to cut it, to get it as even as possible, would be to cut into it like a grid. So you'll go in this way, and then a couple crosses this way, and then you'll have, then when you cut this way, it'll be perfectly cubes. Yes, you're just gonna use the tip of your knife, and we're gonna make cuts all along it, but we wanna leave the back part attached so that it doesn't fall all over the place. So that's why you just use the tip and kind of just be conscious of where your tip is. Try and make it all the same size. And then this little last piece, you can actually just take it off and dice this one by hand, just so they're off. So then we're gonna go in this way, about, depending on the size of the onion, I only have to do it 2 times here because it's a small onion. And then there, we got a grid. Okay, so when you get to this end piece, you can either like just double check that these are all the way through so you don't end up with a large piece, and then if you do, you can just go that way. And then this like last end, if you really want to like get your money's worth, you can go that way. Take that peel off. And there you go, that's what we're left with. We got the most out of our onion. This part is like all core, so I don't really want to use it. You're julienning an onion. A julienne is just like thin slices. So like by definition, it's a matchstick, 2 inches by 1/8 of an inch, but basically anything long and around that size, people call it julienne. You don't have to get too crazy with it. But for a julienne, I would take this end off as well. And this one, you really want to use the shape of the onion. So we're gonna go around it this way instead of just going up, down, up, down, up, down. So this is what it looks like when it's done. And then when you get to here, you can flip it over so it's more stable. Julienne dice. Easy. And so that's pretty much applicable to any vegetable. Like obviously onions have layers, but in terms of the potato, so these you can do bigger, smaller, but just kind of take those like basic principles, and yeah, and in like a month of doing that, you'll have a pretty good knife skill, hopefully. And that's it. That's all we're filming for this one. Just how to cut stuff.
Sick.
Don't fucking put that smile in there. That was heinous.